Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of the live 49ers Mailbag. My favorite show, your favorite show, everybody's favorite show. You can tell by the excitement in the comments. Folks are here early and often for the Mailbag show. Just want to get into it, explain what the Mailbag show is for those of you that are joining us here for the first time. The way in which this works is I bounce back and forth between those of you that are putting in live comments here in the chat. I will answer any questions in there addressed to me, especially if you put in the @Rob or @RobShoe so that I know you're communicating with me. And I'll bounce back and forth between those live questions and those that were submitted ahead of time, either by following me on Twitter @TheLeftShoe or sending them in to 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. The Gmail address, you can email your questions in whenever. They could pop up midweek, and you throw it over to 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. Come Tuesday, the questions come out, and they get answered. But if you want to be here live and put those questions in, I can't fault you. It's good energy. Ellis10, Sneakerhead here on the channel, comes in to say, it's time. Charles Thurman, also Sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, we need a right tackle in a bad way. Thoughts? I'm still counting on the language I'm hearing about Mike McGlinchey. It is concerning. It's concerning that he has the torn quad injury, comes back, plays one preseason game, can't go because of the discomfort, needs to get a platelet-rich injection in order to help out that knee, and has yet to come back from it. So I believe we have the depth at tackle. You saw Jalen Moore returning to practice this week. You have seen some great things from some of the backups for the 49ers. So I'm not going to panic on the Mike McGlinchey news as of right now. Certainly something that I'm monitoring. Definitely an area of concern. It joins the rest of my concerns along the offensive line as a very unproven unit. But one that I feel we have good depth, better depth than most teams within the NFL, and therefore are set up to overcome that obstacle if McGlinchey is going to miss a couple of games. If it is going to extend considerably into the regular season and I were in the front office, I would consider making a move. There are some tackles out there available at the moment. It looks like the talk of tackles and offensive linemen got something going in the chat. You got E. Kim saying, Rob, no loaded lineup without an adequate offensive line. Ellis10 says the O-line is my biggest concern. 916 49er saying, yeah, O-line as well. I am crossing my fingers on that one. Raphael 5629er, Sneakerhead here on the channel, comes in to say hello. What's up, Rob? Sneakerheads and everyone. Miguel coming in to say what's up to the faithful. 420 Savage is sharing my outlook on the O-line. He says, I'm not worried about O-line if they're healthy, minus McGlinchey, because he's a question mark. So that's saying that, hey, even if McGlinchey's out, not concerned. To me, it depends on the length of time that he's out. Ellis10, Sneakerhead here on the channel coming in. Rob Shoe, I'm hearing running back Mason. Jordan Mason is dominating in the backfield. Thoughts on where he might land on the roster as far as the depth chart goes? I think that he'll start out low on the depth chart. My prediction is he does make the 53-man roster. And I'm undecided as to whether that's because he clearly beats out JaMychal Hasty and Jeff Wilson Jr. or potentially Trey Sermon, or because the 49ers carry 5 running backs plus juice. When I do an official 53-man roster, I will make that prediction. I think Mason ends up down towards the end of that depth chart, regardless of whether it is 4 or 5 backs deep, but continues to climb it. Injury will give him an opportunity at some point, and from what I've seen so far, he's got something special there. I would keep my eye on that young gentleman. Ellis10 coming back in. Rob Shoe, given that Elijah Mitchell injury situation, then the lack of production from the backfield, how often do you picture Debo in the backfield? I think you're still looking at a situation where if you average it out over the course of a season, you're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 carries per game on average. Anything more than that, and you're really just using up Debo's production. I understand that you need production out of the backfield, but I suspect that the blocking will get a bit more creative and we will have more room to run in the regular season. Kevin, Sneakerhead here on the channel says, all right, Sneakerheads, let's see what we have in store tonight. Rob, good eve, sir. Good eve to you, Kevin. Kurt Papatakis coming in to say, Rob, Mason will be leading rusher by the end of the season. Crazy? I don't think it's crazy. I think it is far-fetched. Elijah Mitchell has to be the favorite to take down the lead carries, the lead yards this year. TDP would be my bet behind him. But with injury history amongst the 49ers, with the fact that the hot hand tends to go in the backfield of a Shanahan offense, and what I have seen so far with Jordan Mason, no, I don't think it's crazy, but it is a stretch. Ekim coming in. Rob, brat, Polish, or Italian sausage? That one's easy. That's a Polish all day, every day. Alan Elizer coming in. Sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob Shue, good evening to you and everyone. Any news today? Nothing big coming out today. Just the last practice and the last practice report coming out. From here on out, we have the preseason game coming up, and then all the regular season practices wherein I think the beat reporters aren't allowed to stay beyond the first 20 minutes of practice. So this is really the end of that inside information that we get. Kurt coming in to say, smash that like button, N64 Captain Falcon style. Let's do it. Smash that like button. And we're going to be getting to some of these previously submitted questions in just a moment. But I got to get to Ellis 10 first. He says, Rob Shue, I believe you and agreed that Ayuk might be a sleeper in the wide receiver position for fantasy football. I was able to get him late in the draft. Did you draft yet? No, I have at least 4 leagues coming up, several drafts this week. I too, Ellis, will be all over Brandon Ayuk as a late sleeper. To me, he's a 1,000-yard receiver this year. And when you can score 1,000-yard receivers late in the draft, those can be league winning decisions for those of you that are in fantasy football. Again, I would absolutely keep my eye on Brandon Ayuk late in those rounds. We got jokes a-flying about sausage parties. Keep them light, ladies and gentlemen. John B., the sneakerhead here on the channel, comes in to say, Rob, chances Poe takes the left guard spot from Banks by week 1. I have this question in here, and I'm going to get to it in just a little bit. John, that is one of the previously submitted questions. Was that your previously submitted question? Is the question on my mind? No, it is not, but I do have that one in there, and I do have one from John B. Coming up. All right. So let me get into those previously submitted questions. This first one coming in is going to address Nick Mullens. Of course, it's going to address Nick Mullens. Who did you think the first question in a 49ers mailbag was going to be about? Anyone other than the Raiders and Nick Mullens? No. All right, here's the question. Russ comes in with this. The Raiders just traded Mullens for a 7th-round pick. Will the Raiders get more for Mullens than the 49ers will get for Jimmy G? He ends it with a all caps, wow. Yeah, that deserves a wow. Because it sure seems that way. And we're not just talking about a 7th-round pick here, Russ. We're talking about a conditional 7th-round pick. A conditional 7th-round pick. You quite literally cannot get any worse as far as draft compensation, except if you get 0 draft compensation. And that seems to be the way in which it's playing out for the San Francisco 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel pretty secure in saying that the 49ers have not played this hand well. And I know that some people say, well, you can't without knowing how the Jimmy Garoppolo surgery played out, whether they got any concrete offers. I think you can definitively say when Nick Mullens gets traded for a higher asset than Jimmy Garoppolo, you misplayed your hand in some way, shape, or form. And I just don't think that you can argue it. They were certainly backed into a corner, and certainly Jimmy's surgery screwed the 49ers. That is all true. No question about that, and I'm not objecting to those facts. But at some point, I'm guessing that they turned down some lowball offers, right? And that was clearly a mistake in hindsight, no matter how lowball that was at first, right? If they had been in the early goings, if they had received a 4th-round pick offer, they would have scoffed at that. Laughed it out of the building. 4th rounder. Are you kidding me? We turned down 2 2nd-rounders, or so the rumor goes. If the 49ers turn down any offer and they end up cutting Jimmy Garoppolo, with hindsight, you can then say they made a mistake in not taking that lowball offer. It's like when you list your car on Craigslist and you get that first lowball offer and you laugh at it. And then 3 months later, when you're lowering your price below that offer, you say to yourself, well, maybe I ought to have taken that one seriously. Maybe they knew market value for this asset more than I did. And it seems that Jimmy Garoppolo's market assets was not good. Any offer would have been better than what they're getting, because it seems like that's going to be nothing, nada, zilch, zero, diddly squat, bupkis, also known as getting jack shit in return for Jimmy Garoppolo. That is how we are leaving that. And yes, Rob is fired up about the lack of trade and therefore cursing. I'm bringing it in. All right, let me get back into your comments because I want to see the response to the Jimmy Nick kerfluffle that is going on here. Again, if you have questions, type them in as @Rob or @RobShoe, just so that I know that you're talking to me. All right, Raphael 562 comes in to say this, Rob, if Ward and McGlinchey, I'm guessing that we're talking about Jimmy Ward and not Charvarius Ward. That's how I'm interpreting that. If Jimmy Ward and Mike McGlinchey don't come back until week 3, how much of a concern should we have? How much concern should we have if both of those players are out? To me, it depends on the health of Jalen Moore versus putting in McKivitz at right tackle. Either way, quite honestly, for the first 2 games of the season, I am okay with McGlinchey being out. If it is just a couple of games, if it's not a long-term recurring issue with the knee, I'm okay with it. I think we have enough sufficient depth there to cover the right tackle spot. I've seen us cover the right tackle spot in years past with Justin School, and certainly that's not going to be the case this year. But if we were able to make do in years past, I would expect that we can again. The Jimmy Ward vacancy is a bit more concerning to me because I do think he has an impact on the way in which Talanoa Hufanga, a second-year player, will be able to play, whether he plays with confidence, assuredness, or looks a little bit lost as he did in the game where he played without Jimmy Ward last year against the Arizona Cardinals. So the Jimmy Ward absence would be a bigger one to me, but still I feel okay putting in Tarvarius Moore and getting by on that. I would be okay with putting in George Odom and getting through the first couple of games. So neither one is a huge concern for me. John B. coming in says, Rob, the fact that Jimmy hasn't been traded for peanuts speaks more to the front office holding on to him until the last second just to make sure whoever gets him has to wait several weeks till he is ready to play. At this point, it really is the case. You have to assume that one of the teams out there that would kick the tires on Jimmy Garoppolo are the Seattle Seahawks. And the 49ers do not want to do the Seattle Seahawks any favor. The NFC West is a competitive enough division without adding a quarterback to the Seahawks and putting them back into the race. So I do think that it is a tough situation to be in, wherein the 49ers are attempting to, keep their opponents at bay and in the process sort of screwing Jimmy Garoppolo, because he just wants to move on at this point. The Niners just want to move on. Jimmy just wants to move on, but the Niners are trying to be tactical in the way in which they do move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. And that tactic is to prevent other teams from having a ready-to-start starter, in particular, someone like the Seattle Seahawks. So do I want this whole saga to be over? Yes, absolutely. Do I understand the logic for keeping him on the team? Yes. Would I do it myself if I were in the 49ers front office? At this point, this far into training camp, I'm not so sure. I think at this point, you have to actually look at cutting Jimmy Garoppolo. You don't even have him in practices. You don't have him in the rooms. You don't have him with a playbook, right? So it is time to cut bait at some point. Joey Huff coming in. Rob, what are the odds we keep Jimmy since we didn't get anything for him? Or, as you call it, jack shit. I heard Jed York say we would keep him. The answer that John Lynch gave today, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have seemed to hint at this fact that, no, it's coming to a close. The time with Jimmy Garoppolo is coming to a close. So is there a chance that he's on this roster? Yes, absolutely. And could I see a scenario where Jed York actually stepped in and said, you know what, he's too valuable of an asset, we'll keep him? Sure, maybe. I don't think it's likely. I certainly don't think it's likely that Jimmy Garoppolo is on this roster beyond the 30th, where we do the cut down to the 53 man, but I have to say it is absolutely a possibility. Chris Royal, correct in saying this. Sneakerhead on the channel says the first two games are very, very winnable without them. That's in reference to the comment earlier around Jimmy Ward and Mike McGlinchey. First two games, very winnable without those two players in them. I think they get substantially harder. Any game within the NFL, it's any given Sunday, any game within the NFL is tough, but I agree. First two, very winnable. Manly Shavers coming in, Rob. Jimmy screwed himself and the Niners by getting his surgery late. And I have been saying all year, nobody wanted Jimmy. They all knew his weakness. Those are somewhat contradicting points, though, there, right? So, yes, I agree with the first part of it wholeheartedly, that it is the surgery that really did hamstring both Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers and prevented them from being able to trade for him. However, I will say that in believing other teams did not trade for Jimmy Garoppolo because of that surgery status, I'm sort of disagreeing with the second half of your statement there. I believe teams are well aware of Jimmy's shortcomings as a quarterback, but also his skill set. I think for 49er faithful in particular, because we went through so many years of mildly or moderately frustrating play from Jimmy Garoppolo, we have overblown the mistakes that he makes and sort of forgotten that every quarterback within the NFL, even the best ones, make a lot of mistakes when you look at the statistics of it. So it's unfair the way in which we talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. When I look around the rest of the league, it paints a much more complete picture of Jimmy G. So I agree. It was the surgery that hurt him. I think he's a starting caliber quarterback. I believe that he is viewed that way within circles of the NFL. And once he's cut, we'll get the true answer of how many teams come after him, where he ends up, is he starting again, and what does he look like when he's starting? Kurt coming in here to say, Rob, with Ward's status, I think Quantrez Knight's chances at making the roster go up. He's the new Swiss Army knife, taking the spot from Dante Johnson. I like the call of Dante Johnson not making the original 53-man roster. I think then a player is reverted to IR at that point. Dante Johnson, the barnacle, is brought back. It's happened before to Dante, and it may happen again. It looks likely this year. But I like your prediction here, Kurt, of Quantrez Knight making this roster. I am going to have him on my 53-man. No question at this point. I'm hearing good things. All right, Ellis 10 coming in, Rob. I see some SF fans are criticizing the head office for the Jimmy G situation. I thought it was clear that the 49ers were ready to trade Jimmy until he got his last-minute surgery. Yeah, you know, Ellis, I am one of those people that is criticizing the 49ers front office. I'm not implying that they royally screwed the pooch on this one. I fully acknowledge that Jimmy's surgery did hamper their ability to trade him. What I guess I'm saying here is I don't believe the 49ers got zero offers for Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't believe that there was no interest prior to the surgery. I think the 49ers were very confident in their ability to trade Jimmy and overconfident in their ability to trade Jimmy. Now, you could say, hey, if they were unaware of that surgery, then that overconfidence wasn't misplaced. They just were ill-informed as to Jimmy's intent to go get this surgery. I would say that on some level, I'm not saying it should have been obvious, but on some level, the possibility of Jimmy getting a surgery should have been obvious to the 49ers. The priority of moving on from Jimmy should have trumped whatever compensation they were looking to get back. And it felt to me, this is personal opinion here, felt to me like the 49ers were attempting to maximize the compensation they got back so that they could minimize the amount of egg they had on their face from this Jimmy Garoppolo experience. And the end result was greater egg on their face because Jimmy did have the surgery. It did throw off the trade timeline. And now it doesn't seem like there is a trade partner out there. 420 Savage coming in. Rob Shue, could the 49ers keep Jimmy G as trade bait, but not include him in the 53? Healthy scratch. They cannot. In order to get him into the regular season, wherein they start paying him his game checks week 1, they have to keep him on the 53-man roster. Otherwise, he goes to waivers and somebody can claim him. Now, he could then clear waivers. If no one wants to pay that salary, he could clear waivers and become a free agent, and then the 49ers could bring him back. But I don't think that's likely to happen. E. Kim, Rob, why is Jed talking again? He hurts himself when he talks. I haven't heard any recording of Jed or a transcript of it, but I agree wholeheartedly. If Jed puts his mouth out there, it generally does not benefit him or the 49ers a whole heck of a lot. Daniel Garcia doing the good work here, saying hit that like button. Hey, if you enjoy the content, I ask and implore you to hit that like button. Pump up the volume on this stream here. All right, one or two of these questions in the chat here before I go back into the previously submitted ones. John B. coming in, Rob. Jimmy doesn't want to be on the team either. So all the people talking about keeping him have no base. He said his goodbyes and is ready to move on to his next spot, as are the 49ers. I agree with that. Jimmy is a businessman. He is a player that understands the business aspect of the game. If it came down to his best situation being going back to the 49ers, taking a lesser contract, I don't think that would be beyond Jimmy Garoppolo. However, it would take an emotional reset. I'm in agreement with you here, John. He said his goodbyes. Time to allow this relationship to end. Joey Nichols coming in. Rob, what's up, my dude? Gut feeling, Poe gonna. What, Joey? You're leaving us on pins and needles here. Poe gonna make the 53. That's what I say. Russell Peterson coming in. I made it. What did I miss? Russ, your question was first and foremost, so you got to rewind the episode to see me answering your question that you sent in to 49ers Mailbag at gmail.com. I was right, though. Joey says, Rob, gut feeling, Poe going to make the 53. Poe's going to make the 53. I think I might have just done a spoiler for one of my questions later on, but I got to put it in there. All right, I'm coming back for the @shoe because I love that. I mean, I just got to throw it up because that's money. That's money right there, the @shoe. I got to give credit to Come On Friday, but I'm going to be right back to Come On Friday's comment after I get into these previously submitted ones. Raphael A. coming in with this question. Says, will Trey Lance throw more than 24 passes this Thursday? So let me start out by saying, according to Kyle Shanahan, seems like Trey Lance and the starters are going to play one half of football against the Texans on Thursday. Seemed very clear that they would not be coming back in for the second half. So that would be a very busy day throwing if that were the case, the equivalent to throwing 48 attempts in a full contest. So I'd expect that Trey has about double the reps of his showing against Green Bay. In that game, he threw 5 attempts in about 10 minutes of game action, but then the 49ers started with the football, and then they, obviously kicked back off to Green Bay. And so you were looking at a scenario where even if Green Bay went 3 and out after those 2 possessions, the 49ers are getting the ball back with chump change left in the first quarter. So I'm guessing it's going to be about twice that game action for Trey Lance. First drive was a pretty successful one. Second one, pretty short, but only because it was a touchdown pass to Danny Gray. My guess is that he makes somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 times the number of attempts. So that puts us between 10 to 15 attempts. And I am taking one of my lucky numbers. Trey makes 13 pass attempts on Thursday. You heard it here first. And I'm going to go one step further and say his completion percentage, 9 of 13 on the day. Trey goes 9 of 13, and we're all thrilled about it. Next one in from 490 We Global says, would you let go Hasty, Wilson, and an O-lineman and keep Purdy, TDP, and Mason and build the future behind Trey? I'd say TDP and Mason are players I would definitely keep. As of right now, I want both of them to make the 53. TD3 is a lock considering his draft capital, the draft capital that was used to get him. Trey Sermon is not a lock, but we'll address him in a question that's going to come up later. Hasty, I would definitely release when cutting down to the 53. Nothing against Hasty. Very talented back, very talented third down back, very shifty, smaller, quicker in space. He's different from the other backs. And so there is a chance I'm wrong about him not making the 53-man roster because of that fact that if you're looking for that smaller, shiftier third down back, Hasty sort of stands out from the other players there. I'm not sure Hasty would get claimed if we release him. That's one of my primary reasons for thinking that's a cut candidate. You look back at the production as our primary third down back, hasn't been great. Wilson, though, is a tougher cut for me. He's a proven commodity at a position the 49ers have struggled with injury at. And I think you're absolutely looking at a dude who would get claimed. No doubt. And the 2 younger, heavier backs are unproven. when comparing them to Wilson. So I'm keeping Wilson on this roster, but I'm not sacrificing one of our young offensive linemen to do it, because that was the hypothetical that was thrown out here. If I have to choose another offensive position to sacrifice, because I'm saying it's not going to be O-lineman, if I'm keeping 5 running backs plus Juice, it's going to be the 6th wide receiver spot that I'm sacrificing. I'm just not convinced that Malik Turner isn't going to clear waivers and be available as that special teams ace if needed. I'm not sacrificing anybody to bring Brock Purdy onto this roster. The roster's just too talented for a quarterback that may or may not develop into starting caliber, may or may not have the arm strength to be a solid backup quarterback, may be a gem in the rough. No doubt about it, a diamond in the rough. I think if the front office doesn't believe he's more valuable than Nate Sudfeld, then you waive him and you hope he makes it to the practice squad. My logic for that is, I ask, how many teams even carry 3 quarterbacks? Rohan was on the program yesterday. He looked it up about last year, said it was 9 that carried a 3rd quarterback. And most of those teams are keeping their own guy that they have some faith in, right? The dude who's at the end of their roster that they see some promise in. Which team is seriously going to dump their prospect, go and grab Purdy as their 3rd quarterback? I think you have to risk cutting him unless he can replace Nate Sudfeld, which I don't think he can just yet. So you got to risk it. You got to hope that he clears waivers and comes back. All right, we've got a couple more questions previously submitted, but we're coming back into the chat because that's where the action is at. All right, here we go. Come on Friday. At Shoe says Jimmy doesn't want a crap team. Reworked contract, trade Sudfeld for anything, have Jimmy on the playoff team as a backup in case Trey goes down. If Trey gets hurt, we lose a playoff year. There's logic to this. I know that this type of a statement incenses 49er faithful, in particular those who are staunchly behind Trey Lance. And I want to say this. I also am staunchly behind Trey Lance. And I cannot fault the logic that having Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup quarterback, purely from a talent standpoint, take out of the equation the drama, take out of the equation the hurt feelings, the locker room cancer stuff, all that. Those are all valid arguments, but right now we're setting that aside and we're just asking, are the 49ers a better roster with Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup quarterback instead of Nate Sudfeld? If you take the answer that it's Nate Sudfeld, you and I need to sit down and have a conversation, because there's no logic to that, right? No matter what your feelings are for Jimmy Garoppolo, I hope you're willing to acknowledge he's a better backup than Nate Sudfeld. At this point in time, there are credible people that would make an argument that he could step in week 1 and potentially be more effective than Trey Lance in operating this offense. I'm not going to touch that one because that would start a whole different conversation, but I am definitively of the belief that Jimmy would make a better backup quarterback than Nate Sudfeld. However, you cannot look at that in a vacuum. You have to bring into account the idea that it would cause a giant mess within the locker room, within the national media, within the local media. It would be ridiculous. And so when I weigh all of that together, and when I think about Jimmy just wanting to move on, I think the correct course of action is to allow Jimmy Garoppolo to go find his new team, even if that ends up being the Seattle Seahawks. Man. Ekem coming in. Rob, you know my position on Jimmy. He should have been cut in 2021, and keeping him as a starting quarterback will never win this franchise another Super Bowl. I will never say never. I will almost never say never. I just did say never, but I corrected myself. I will almost never say never. I think Jimmy was arguably, 1 or 2 throws away from winning a Super Bowl. So you can't say he'd never do it, right? I mean, he was pretty damn close to it. Had the defense just come through for the rest of that Super Bowl, Jimmy would have won us the Super Bowl, right? Like, I'm not saying that Jimmy didn't play a part in losing that Super Bowl, but it's fair to say we were up. We were up in the Super Bowl and didn't win it. I will say, yes, it is time to move on. I'm not with you on cutting him last year. I liked getting to the NFC Championship game. I thought that was a hell of a run. I'm glad it was Jimmy's last run. I do think it's time to move on now, but I'm not trying to rewrite that history. But I get people that are. Kim Adams coming in. Rob, love your show. Great personality. Keep up the great work. Kim, thank you. And thank you again for showing me a picture of your 67 GTO because it's fantastic. Always got to call out the 67 GOAT. All right. Joey coming in. Joey Nichols. Rob, Jed did a recent interview with Tim Kawakami. After listening to it, I feel as good about Jed as I ever have. He showed a lot of self-awareness with respect to mistakes made in the past. I gotta give Jed credit. Like, number one, I always had a bit of a soft spot for the idea that at one point in time, a dude got me field passes for my birthday. He had no reason to do so. He did. That's a solid. So Jed, you get some credit in my book for that one. No doubt about it. But I also feel as if he has matured over these past few seasons, in particular, the Shanahan-Lynch era. So I got to give credit where credit is due. Good job for Jed in maturing and showing that maturity. Kim, Rob, Sermon getting traded or cut? I wouldn't be shocked by either one, but I hope that he stays and is able to recover. And Sermon is here saying, be nice. So I will. I'm going to be nice. Sermon, RB1. He should be RB1 on Thursday. So Trey, I just need you to come out and show us. Show us what you can do, Trey. Show us what you can do. Prince Mason coming in. Rob, Jeff Wilson is always injured. I would sacrifice wide receiver. I think that's in reference to the running backs that I would keep. And I believe that is saying that Prince would keep Jordan Mason as opposed to the 6th wide receiver. I can't fault that. I cannot fault that. Jeff Wilson seems to be very popular on the roster, very popular amongst the coaches. I will be surprised if he's not on the 53-man. Unless it is an injury designation. I wouldn't be surprised by that. John B. says, Rob, any running back the 49ers release is getting snatched up. That is entirely possible. Entirely possible. I'm not so sure, though, if it is JaMychal Hasty. I'm just not sure he would be a hot commodity. Oh, here we go. This is the finishing that thought. John B. says, any running back they release is getting snatched by Miami because of McDaniels. Great call out. Absolutely. I'm with Camper on this one. Says that's the risk you take. I'm with that. You absolutely still have to build the best 53-man that you can, regardless of that risk of someone else grabbing one of your players. Randon McMahon in the building. What's up, everyone? He says, between two beards, back tomorrow. About time. About that time, Randon. Let's do it. Jaguayo 56, sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, will we keep 8 O-linemen and 12 D-line? Thoughts? I think it is a guarantee that we keep at a minimum 8 O-line. D-line, I could see 11 or 12. I haven't done my official 53-man roster. What I can say is there is enough talent on that D-line, barring some injuries, to keep 12. There are 12 players I would want on this 53-man roster, but it comes down to that puzzle assembly, right? All these puzzle pieces have to fit together to come up with those best 53-man results. I'm tempted to say that you need a deep defensive line, especially with all those starting caliber candidates along that D-line. But until I get down to the final roster spots, it's hard to make a concrete prediction, but I will have a concrete 53-man roster prediction coming out. Here we go. Tom Bragg in the building says, Rob Shue, if Poe beats out Banks, does Banks get traded? Interesting. I thought Banks had locked down that left guard position, and now we've got Poe a couple of first-team reps, and all of a sudden it has started the conversation. I do not think that Poe grabs that left guard spot. I think Banks holds it down, but if Banks were unseated, would you consider trading him? I think it's too early. It is too early. No, I think you hold on to him. You need depth at offensive line. The 49ers have depth there. And I think that Banks, after reshaping his body, is great interior depth. Kim, Rob, why does this front office draft running backs before the 5th round in any draft? Doesn't this scouting staff have more luck with their selections with running backs than Kyle? Yes, they do. And I have no idea why they continue to put assets into running backs when they can, in fact, find them later in the draft or as freaking free agents, right? It is wild to me that we continue to invest and then not see the results. It's wild. It is wild. Chris Royal coming in with the super chat says, I think Lance will be getting around 10 to 15 attempts as well. I think he finishes with about 70% completion rate. Game is at 5 p.m. Status on the call-in show. Call-in show will be prior to the game. We are doing a run-up to the game with the Sneakerhead call-in show. Chris, that is a fantastic question to ask there. Yes, looking at, I'm thinking 4 p.m. I'll put out a survey on the community tab so that sneakerheads can vote on it, but I'm leaning towards 4 to 5. Just run up to the game, boom, kick off that final preseason game at 5 p.m. This is an interesting one from John B. talking about the roster building. Rob, instead of sacrificing wide receiver depth, they should carry only 2 tight ends and use Juice as a tight end in spots. That's an intriguing one. In particular, if you were to, I don't know, say put Charlie Warner onto one of the injury lists. He's back at practice now, so I'm not so sure that they'll be able to do that. However, if you could hide one of those tight ends through the first 4 games of the season, I see that happening along the 49ers roster. They will hide some players on injury designations. I could see them using one of the tight ends. To John's point, I think there is value to that. The wide receiver depth, in particular Malik Turner, adds value as a gunner. And if you can contribute on special teams, that probably earns you a spot. But it is tough, man. Building this roster is going to be so impossible when you get down to those last couple of cuts. It's going to be fun. Daryl Smock coming in with the super chat says, Rob, do you think we can win a Super Bowl with Kyle? I personally think he doesn't have that killer instinct that we need from our head coach, especially for finishing must-win games. Daryl, I do believe that we can. I think people are incredible. People are capable of incredible change. I can't get that out. Apparently, the world didn't want me to say what I'm trying to say right now, which is I think Kyle Shanahan can improve in the area where I believe he is lacking. I think he lacks the clutch gene. When things get tight, when you get to the end of a big game, I think Kyle Shanahan gets tight. He gets to where he tends to make the wrong decision, to where he's not thinking properly, to where I think he's going to benefit from having somebody right there in his ear. I'm hoping that bringing someone on, a senior coaching staff member, that could be the one piece that we were really missing in this collection of coaches. And Anthony Lynn, to me, is, I hope, that calm voice in Kyle Shanahan's ear. And, you know, if next year we move on and DeMeco Ryans gets a head coaching job and you know, we get a situation where we bring in a certain ex-defensive coordinator with a ton of experience, you could also have that calming voice in Kyle Shanahan's ear. So I relate this to my own personal experience of, like, I play poker, right? And I'm not great at it. I'm not saying that I am. But when I get into a big hand, I tend to get nerves, right? Like, regardless, it could be a hand that's worth $5, it could be a hand that's worth $1,000. The nerves are the same regardless, because it's the fact that you're in it, like your money's on the line, and your blood starts going fast, and you can't think straight. And then I make my bet, win or lose, and the next pot, like, my blood's calmed down a little bit. My heart isn't beating quite as fast. I'm able to think more rationally. So the more and more I go through those situations, the more calm and rational I get in those high pressure moments. I believe that's the same when coaching a football team. When you are the head coach, Kyle Shanahan is going to get more bites at that apple. He's building a phenomenal team. He's a great coach. He's going to end up in the playoffs. He's going to end up in the Super Bowl. And I think that experience in the end will be what turns it around for him. He will learn how to be clutch in those situations. All right, Ellis 10, Sneakerhead, coming in to say, when I calculated the running back backfield, I completely and foolishly did not include Juice. Do you think he will have more action this season? In my opinion, he's a great secret weapon. I love the earlier comment about use as tight end too, of getting greater usage to Juice. Yes, I absolutely believe he is capable and should get greater usage this year. AJB coming in with a good sage advice. Rob, gamble responsibly. I do. It's a friendly poker game that I play at. It's definitely not high stakes. This is a low buy-in, family-friendly type of a poker game that I play in. Now, if I go to Vegas, maybe that's for a little bit more money, but I still ration. I ration like a MFer. I just came across MFer in a comment. I had to use it. I'll be rationing like a MFer. All right, we are going back into the previously submitted questions, and we will be back in the chat in just a moment. So put in your questions in the chat. If you've got them now, hit me with @Rob or @RobShoe. All right, this next one comes in from Scott. Scott J says, are you concerned about Trey throwing 3, in parentheticals, bad interceptions in yesterday's practice? I will say this. I am not. I'm not concerned about the practice statistics. I'm not concerned about the turnovers. I am pleased that the defense seems to be able to force greater turnovers this offseason. But to me, when I read the reports of yesterday, it seemed to me that Emmanuel Moseley was just playing out of his head. And yes, that Trey may have been a little bit off, as he has been in some practices this year. That's not something that I feel is out of the normal for a player coming in with so few reps underneath his belt as Trey Lance is coming into his second season in the NFL. I remain convinced of one thing above all else, that practice is intended to work on things. In particular, it is intended for areas where you might struggle. So it's fair to assume that when working on areas of weakness, you might make more mistakes. So it's even encouraged to make those mistakes. Think back to Fred Warner last year, encouraging Trey to take more shots so that the defense got more chances at turning the ball over. I do think Trey will be more conservative in live games. Plus, Shanahan is going to game plan around Trey's strengths, minimize those weaknesses. So I am not worried. This team has enough talent to carry the wins until Trey progresses sufficiently to carry the team himself when needed. And I do believe he will be able to carry the team himself later in the season as this schedule gets a little bit more difficult. This one comes in from Dan R. Dan R says, if Sermon is cut to make room for Mason, do you think another team picks him up? If not, it seems likely they could keep him on the practice squad and call him up in case of injury. So this one is an interesting one to me. So if Sermon is cut to make room for Mason, do you think another team picks him up? Yes, absolutely. To me, when a player is entering his second year after not playing much as a rookie, it's fair to think that other teams might use their own draft profile on a player when grabbing them from waivers. So Sermon was projected at about the 3rd round level the Niners grabbed him at. There are undoubtedly teams out there who had a similar grade on him and would believe they can coax that talent out of Trey Sermon. Perhaps their scheme would be a better fit, or their coach believes, I can get it out of him. I saw it in his tape at college. I want to bring him in. I believe that JaMycal Hasty would clear waivers. I think Jeff Wilson Jr. probably gets grabbed by Seattle or Arizona if cut, if not by somebody else. Sermon, to me, would be claimed by a long list of teams. Ironically, cutting Sermon might still be the smart move in roster construction. I just don't know whether the 49ers will be willing to admit that mistake. Just drafting him last year, that's egg on your face. 49ers seem opposed to that. Will they be willing to admit a mistake if, in fact, they believe they have made one to this point with Trey Sermon? All right, we got a couple more previously submitted questions that we will get into. This one coming in from John B. I like this. This is the order of the cut. It says, who would get cut first, Ambry Thomas or Trey Sermon, if neither plays well the last preseason game? It has to be Trey Sermon. Right? Of the two, at least Ambry Thomas has flashed something pretty special. He was really solid in the last few games of the 21 season in his rookie year. Clearly, he has hit a sophomore slump, and it is a doozy of a sophomore slump. But again, we've seen what he can do. Trey Sermon, on the other hand, has struggled consistently. Also, he struggled in a very running back friendly offense. The Niners and Shanahan keep finding these late round or undrafted gems. The need to invest high draft picks still confuses me the past 2 years. It doesn't feel crazy to say the 49ers could go out and replace what they're getting from Trey Sermon off of the waiver wire at this point. So of the two, I have to give it to Trey Sermon getting cut first over Ambry Thomas. But it'll be intriguing to watch both of them because both have had questionable up and down off seasons. Trey Sermon going back into both of them, up and down seasons in 2021 as well. All right, we got one more late addition to the questions, but we're getting back into your previously submitted questions for the moment. So if you have that previously submitted question, go ahead and type it in there with the @Rob or @RobShoe. All right, we are going to the super chat. Got to get in the super chat here. Always appreciate that. Daryl Smock coming back in. Rob, it didn't seem like Kyle learned from the Kansas City Super Bowl to the Lambs playoffs. He just doesn't have that killer instinct to finish a big game. Just saying. Those felt like different scenarios, I will say. We did end up losing them both, no question about it, and you could fault Kyle Shanahan for mistakes made in both instances, but they felt different. They felt like different circumstances. I get what you're saying there, and it wouldn't be a perfect trajectory. It is not going to be something where Kyle is constantly improving in that area, but my gut tells me that he will be able to improve, that it will slow down for him, much like the game slows down for rookies. And I'll be honest, even if Kyle Shanahan is missing that gene that makes him super clutch, I think he's capable of putting together a roster and an offense that might just be able to outscore the hell out of opponents and make it not so close in those games to where it's not imperative for him to make those clutch decisions in the moment. All right, Rohan coming in here. Rohan, hello there. Comes in @Rob. Do you believe that Jason Poe is making the 53-man roster? I declared it earlier. Yes, I can. And that does take me into this previously submitted question. It was a late one from Lionel coming in. Can you see Jason Poe making his way onto the starting left guard role if Aaron Banks is a bad showing this upcoming preseason game? I say no to this. No, not starting above Banks in week 1. Just the number of reps that Banks has gotten leaves me thinking he's going to start week 1. But could he have a very short leash? Absolutely. Could we see Poe grabbing that spot within the first 6 games of the season? Absolutely. If we see Aaron Banks struggling in the regular season, I think he will have a short leash. And I am saying Poe earns himself a roster spot by playing well this Thursday, continuing to play well this Thursday. And we should be looking to see if he gets any of those first half snaps to see if possibly there is some way that he unseats our current left guard and gets that spot. All right, looking for those @Rob Shoe comments so that I know you're talking to me. 420 Savage says, Rob Shoe, who's your starting safeties? Got to be Jimmy Ward and Talanoa Hufanga. And if Jimmy Ward misses week 1, it'll be interesting to see who gets a run on Thursday. Tayshaun Gibson, certainly the most veteran presence, the most experience back there, but least amount of time within the defensive system. Tarvarius Moore, very athletic, seemed improved in his play after getting torched in the first preseason game. And George Odom coming away with the pick. Honestly, I could see all of them getting some snaps with the ones. Who gets the actual start? I'm going to say Tarvarius Moore. Tarvarius Moore gets that actual start. All right, Joey Nichols coming in. Rob, how worried, 1 to 10, 10 being the most, about the back end of the defense are you if Jimmy Ward misses, say, the first 4 weeks of the season? First 4 weeks is at least moderately concerning because weeks 3 and 4 against the Broncos and the Rams are tough matchups. I already have the 49ers dropping those 2 games. I did it to be conservative. I did it because I think Lance is going to be learning and improving through the start of the season. And when I made that prediction, I wasn't quite as high on the 49ers defense as I am at this point. I think that the 49ers more likely start out 3-1 as opposed to 2-2. If Jimmy Ward is out for the first 4 weeks, I'd feel more comfortable going back to my 2-2 prediction. I do think it hurts this defense. I would say they have the talent to compensate, but I'm just not so sure that they have the veteran savvy to make up for what they lose when Jimmy Ward is not out there. So I do think it is a big loss for the 49ers if Jimmy Ward can't come back for, let's say, week 3 against Denver. Bullpup33, sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, seeing how deep the defensive line is, do you think we should have picked up a safety in the draft? I absolutely do. And, at this point in time, it's a little frustrating to see the 49ers with Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price, and wonder what they could have done as far as bringing in a safety. However, I think if health holds, the 49ers are going to be okay at the position. I'm not super confident if we deal with a considerable absence by Jimmy Ward. I'm not thrilled with the depth there. However, this draft class is pretty freaking spectacular to this point, so I can't criticize the 2022 draft too heavily because it looks like we've hit on a lot of these players to some level. All right, let's see. Chris Royal coming in. Rob, do you think Sermon has any trade value? I believe he's been the weakest link. Can we get something for him? To those teams that had the third round grade on him, if you offered Sermon up for a 6th round pick, conditional 5th round pick, I think that there could be some interested teams out there. Pete Gorman saying a little Glenn Coffey. No, he is not going to go be a Trey Sermon is not about to go give sermons in the way that Glenn Coffey was as a pastor. All right, looking for the at Rob Shoe, Starco fan 212, sneakerhead here on the channel coming in. Rob Shoe, do you think we will make a move for an O lineman before week 1? I do not. If we do, that will signal a great deal about Mike McGlinchey's health to me. I will be looking at the 49ers moves along the offensive line to gauge how healthy Mike McGlinchey is and whether he will miss week 1 or any time beyond that. The more they invest, the more I believe it is a lingering injury. If they invest a considerable amount, it could be something where he starts on an injury list. Rohan coming in. Rob Shoe, on a more serious note, is Jack Hammer your least favorite content creator? No, Jack Hammer is definitely not my least favorite content creator. One of my favorites. Jack Hammer is a hardworking dude, almost as hardworking as Rohan here. No, probably as or more, right? I mean, they're fighting for 1 and 2 right there as far as hardworking. Yeah, Jack is up there on the list of favorite content creators. Niners Warriors says, Rob, what's good? Everyone is getting Sermon's performance wrong. Our number 1 O-line is not opening holes against number 1 D-lines. Hasty, Mason, TDP are benefiting from the lack of depth of other teams, number 2 and number 3 defensive line depths. Niners Warriors, I will say that there is something to this, that when you hear the coaching staff speak about Trey Sermon, when you watch the tape, there are some missed opportunities, no doubt about it. Watch some of the tape on the last game. There was absolutely an instance where Sermon did not follow his lead blocker, was then hemmed up in going wide, could have gotten some yards. Maybe it was just him on the safety if he follows his lead blocker. But I do agree that there are not many holes being opened up by that starting offensive line. And just remember that not all our starters are out there. So this is fair. It's a fair observation. I don't think it accounts for everything, but it is fair to point out that accounts for some of the lack of success. E. Kim, Rob, still coming to Chicago. I have bought my flight and reserved my hotel room. Chicago is booked, E. Kim. Look at me now, says Rob. How many road games are you attending this year? As of right now, it's looking like 5. 5 road games starting in Chicago, including Atlanta, Seattle, Denver, and Mexico City. Those are the ones I have on the docket as of right now. I do need to renew my passport. I need to get my ass on that because as I hear it, they are delayed, and I don't know if I have enough time to get it renewed by Mexico City. Can I just use my driver's license? Maybe I have to drive down to Mexico City. That could be a long road trip. It'd be fun, though. It'd be a lot of fun. Joey Nichols, I agree. Jack Hammer is a good dude. Plus, have you seen his hammer dance? It's impressive. E. Kim saying the game on Thursday on Amazon Prime. I'm telling you that this whole where to watch the 49ers games is It's a real travesty for your boy Rob Shue at this moment. I went and canceled DirecTV because I thought we were getting a streaming option this year. After knowing that it was, in fact, next year, I thought, no, NFL Plus has come out. The NFL is going to be broadcasting my Niners games. To hell with DirecTV. Get them out of here. So I canceled it, sent them back their BS equipment, and stopped paying their $200 a month when I'm not even, getting my Red Zone charged to me yet. Upwards of like $300 a month once I'm being charged for my Red Zone channel as well. And now it looks like I got to go back to DirecTV to get my Niners games. This is very frustrating. I'm not thrilled about it, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Oh, Alan coming in to point out, man, it may be 6 games I'm at, because I wasn't thinking of Seattle initially when I thought of 5. Seattle makes it 6. I am going to Vegas. That one I have booked my hotel for. I have not booked the flight yet because, booking a flight 5 months out, they get you. They get you when you book too far in advance when it comes to flights because they know you're just one of those people that needs to have it locked in and they could charge whatever they want. Flights, I wait until about 6 weeks prior. Then I start looking. Game tickets, man, I could wait up until the last minute. Try and get one of those fools who's maximizing their earning potential and then has to slash their prices right before the start of the game. So, yes, I will be in Vegas. 6 games. Man, it's going to be a good season. Look at me now coming back in. Rob, will you do a post-game show this year? Absolutely. I love the post-game show. Looking to do a pre-game show and post-game show. Really do need to figure out what that will look like when I'm there on location. I'd like to get your guys' input on what you would like to see from a fan perspective, because I really want to bring that flavor to you people, right? To the channel. I want to get in some video of the stadium itself. I want to do that live pregame from inside the stadium, but I need to know what people are looking for, what would interest them when doing those live shots, because it's one that it doesn't naturally occur to me. When I'm putting together a show like this, I know how to lay it out. When I'm doing the post-game shows, react to the comments, it's great. But when I'm there live at the stadium, that's still an experience that I want to do a better job of capturing and giving to all of you. I love the videos before and after the Green Bay Packers game at Lambeau Field in the playoffs. I thought those were super genuine videos, and I got a lot of great comments from people saying, man, you made me feel like I was there in the stands with you, Rob. And that's what I'm looking to do. So if you have suggestions around ways in which I can do that, hit me up at 49ers Mailbag at gmail.com. I really do want to step up my game in that respect. Chris Royal coming in. Rob says, if we can't trade Jimmy to another team by week 1, can we trade him to the local Thunder from Down Under? Wife's question. Sarah, for you, yes, we can get that done. We'll ship him right out to Vegas. Thunder from Down Under. You can go see Jimmy anytime you want. No complaints about that from most people who would go and see Thunder from Down Under. It's a very valid choice. It would take Jimmy's strongest skill sets and put them to use. All right, E. Kim coming in. Rob, post-game call-in show idea for all subscribers. I like that. Subscribers calling in, a post-game call-in. That's a good one. Keep those coming. All right, looking for the at Rob Shue to close this out. Joey Nichols. Rob, do you have a ticket for the Chicago game yet? I do not. I was worried I was going to miss out on good seats, so I locked in seats at the 100 level around the 50-yard line. Joey, we should probably talk. I mean, I would feel bad if I can't lowball you, right? Like, you remember, you are someone who contributes to the channel in the dialogue. But yes, we will definitely, we'll talk. Russ says maybe the parking lot. He says, look for the professional tailgaters. That could be fun. Maybe like a pre-game interview session. Find the professional tailgaters. Number one, interview them about their tailgating session, right? What are you cooking? Brats. What's the routine? When are you getting here? Do you have a TV set up? Do you have a satellite TV dish? Like, there's some cool stuff people are doing in parking lots, and I feel like I could get down with some Niner fans that are there, especially if it's a road game and I find myself some hardcore Niner tailgaters. That would be phenomenal. But then I could interview them about their thoughts on the game too. This might be a direction, Russ. This just might be it. Joey Nichols says, Rob, it cost me an arm and a leg, though. That's what I'm talking about. You bought early, and it was a strategy. It was a strategy, but you paid for it. Kim Adams coming in. Rob, is this your full-time job? I wish that it was. I really want it to be. I really do want it to be. And my hope is still that at some point in time, it will be. I'm putting that out there. Kevin, Sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob, I'm not a fan of the immediate reaction from the stadium. I like feet on the ground, but prefer a response without planes, trains, and automobiles in the background. That's good to know because the audio quality of those post-game, responses, whether it's coming from any of the beat reporters after these training camp practices, I agree. In particular, at Levi's Stadium, because apparently planes, trains, and automobiles all just roll by that stadium and create incredible backup noise. AJB coming in to say, Rob, are you meeting with Vish in Chicago? No plans to yet, but I will reach out to him and see if he's interested. Vish and I talked about doing a show way back in the day. Timing just didn't work out. I still would like to make that happen. That's a reminder to reach out. No more drop, says Rob. What do you do as your main job, or is that a secret, bro? Right, I keep a little something back as not public knowledge. Just keep a little mystery. PL Stamps coming in to say, what's up, Rob? First time commenter here. You're doing a bang up job. Keep it up. PL Stamps, thank you to you. I appreciate the compliment. I love the fact that you're a first time commenter. I hope not a last time commenter. That was a cheers to you. I hope we have made a new fan. I hope that you enjoy the content. And if you do enjoy the content, I hope that you smash that like button for me. Steven Jones coming in. Rob, love your post-game Lambeau footage. I'm telling you, that was such a real celebration. If you want, go back and watch that. If you haven't seen my post-game celebration in Lambeau, snow coming down, me losing my shit, it is very memorable. I had a blast out there at Lambeau Stadium. I had a blast making that video. I had a blast at that game. It was a hell of a memory. 420 Savage. Rob Shue, I live around the stadium. Live around the stadium is my favorite. Before game and after victory. Do a stadium tour before game brings us closer to the game. I'm thinking there's something to this before the game. Joey Nichols says, Rob, yeah, I caved, talking about the seats, paying a little extra for it. Says, I know I could have gotten cheaper seats in the upper level closer to the game time, but I just wasn't sure about prime seats. Thought I might miss out. Hey, better safe than sorry. If you want the seats guaranteed, you lock them in. Who cares about the price, right? That is where, if you want in, you get in. Matt Hudson, Rob, is CIA confirmed. Not confirmed, but you know how it is. Not confirmed. Definitely not confirmed. Not confirmed. E. Kim, Rob, contact me. I'll meet up with you in Chicago. That's a done deal. E. Kim, need the restaurant recommendations? We're doing it. John B., Sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob, we need a round table with you, Jack, Vish, Rohan, Aponte, and maybe a couple of others. I don't even know how to mic that situation. I have figured out how to mic 3 individuals on a stream. No idea how to get 7, but that would be epic. I think that we should absolutely make a mass roundtable happen. Rohan coming in. Rob Shue told me that he works secret jobs in the night that can't be spoken of. You heard it here first. Rohan, you were trusted with that information. Trusted. Unbelievable. Chris Royal coming in with a super chat. Small 2 to 4 minute videos of places you go and experience at the away games. I love it. Restaurants, bars, and stuff to give the faithful a glimpse. This is a great way to bring in shorts and a good way to show that, yeah, I'm a foodie. I'm going around to all those restaurants. I will absolutely work on making that happen. Great suggestion, Chris. All right, Ellis10. Rob, I'm surprised this is not your full-time job. What can we do to support your channel to help move you closer to being full-time? You were born for this. Well, thank you. It really is just a question of committing to it at some point. I think, the problem is I like nice stuff, Ellis, and this gig doesn't pay a whole hell of a lot at the moment. And so you have to decide between one or the other. Either you like nice stuff and therefore you need money to purchase that nice stuff, or you cut back on that nice stuff and do what it is you want to do. And, I'm really going back and forth on that one. There's the childhood, dream within inside of me doesn't want to die. And so it's like, hey, dude, just give up the expensive stuff. Just stop ordering takeout all the freaking time. Just stop buying that expensive stuff and you could do this. And so we'll see. I hope to be doing it full-time by the end of this season. Putting that out there. Chris Royal coming in. Rob, please the fifth on CIA ties. Yes, I do. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth. Pleading that fifth. Rohan coming in. Rob Shue, I'll take a nice donation to keep the details of the job quiet. I'm being blackmailed by my collabs here. I love it. Absolutely love it. TC coming in. Love you, Rob, bro. Keep it big dog for show. Keeping it real here, TC. I appreciate all of you guys coming in here. I appreciate the freaking suggestions, too. I love the idea of the foodie spots. Let's see. I saw one in there. R Boogie coming in says, yeah, bro, make some shorts of your foodie spots on the road. That's a great suggestion. A great way to continue to keep people in the loop of the away game experience. Niners Warriors coming in with the last comment here. Rob, life is good. Do you happen to read the Albert Breer article yesterday? Surprise podcasters aren't all over this. Confirms Trey has been going through a lot and how the media overreacts to nothing. I talked about it yesterday on the program with Jack Hammer, and I do think that it confirms that Trey was dealing with some things, right? And I am surprised that it didn't get more traction because everything seems to be getting blown up, but not because I thought it was a story that needed to be revisited. I believe that we have covered the angle of Trey's arm fatigue, that it was something that happened last year and not something we need to be concerned with this season. Barring another finger injury, I don't think he's going to have to rework his throwing mechanics again. Epic Wolf. I said the last comment, but anytime there's a Bugatti comment, Rob got a Bugatti in the garage, so of course he can't do this full time. No Bugatti, but I am a car guy. I am a car guy. Not quite a Bugatti at this point. E. Kim, loving it. Sent you an email for restaurant recommendations. Anybody from the Chicago area, feel free to send those restaurant recommendations. I have gotten away from 49er football. It means it's about time to wrap the show. I thank you all for being here. I thank you all for your comments, for your questions. Again, if you want to submit a question for a future mailbag and it's not a Tuesday or you don't use Twitter, go ahead and throw it in at 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. At any point during the week, I will try to pull those up, bring them in for Tuesday's mailbag. You can also follow me on Twitter at The Left Shoe. Tuesday mornings, I put out the tweet asking for your questions. And hell, if you don't want to put them in ahead of time, that's quite all right. Show up live. Hit that bell notification on my channel after you're subscribed. You'll know when I go live. You can show up to this mailbag on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Going to try and keep that time consistent because I love this show. And you can ask your questions live. You can get my off-the-cuff responses, no filter, a little bit of filter. Like a little bit of filter because I know I'm live in front of thousands of people. So yeah, a little bit of a filter. Jaguayo56 coming in. Great show. Hope you have a great evening. Stay blessed. You as well, Jaguayo56. I hope you are blessed as well as your family. Stay blessed. We have John B. Rob, interview opposing teams' fans and get a feel for how they see the 49ers. Another great suggestion. These are dope. I am absolutely going to take these in. Shorts on the food spots that I hit, especially the ones that E. Kim is putting out there for me. So you guys know that E. Kim is coming through with the legit restaurant recommendations, going through, finding tailgaters to talk to them about their food options, finding 49ers tailgaters to talk to them about the game, and finding opposing fans to get their take on the Niners. This is good stuff and is going to make great content. Keep the suggestions coming. Feel free to email me at 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. And Raphael5629ers, thank you for that. Coming in with the super chat just to say, great show, Rob. Appreciate you, Raphael. Appreciate you putting in your question today. It was a great one. Appreciate you being here in the comments. As always, appreciate your support on the channel. That goes to everybody. Whether you're here in the comments, just pop by for one show, you subscribe to the channel, you join the channel, whether you're constantly commenting or just lurking there on the sidelines, I appreciate each and every one of you because this channel wouldn't be possible without you. The goal, the dream of making this thing full-time would be an absolute joke without you. It's a possibility because of you. It's a possibility because of your support. And I want to say that I acknowledge that and I thank you for that. I appreciate it. Keep this thing going. I'll be back tomorrow with Randon at 5 p.m. Appreciate all of you. Solid. Cheers, faithful.